tizalom Hikolena Overoiz chavivi alai La 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 ta da da la 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 ta da da la da da la da da la 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 da la 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 da la da la da 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 la ba da la la da da la da la 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 okay no hayato ani som can I say Salahem when I came alali loisam Roimemo Hayashem Elokeinu V'yishtachavu Halyare Kodeshoi Kikodoish Hashem Elokeinu Pa pa ya pa 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 da 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 la da da la 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 yeah, me venibnesa. Hey, I'll take love. Go! Oh, B'nai Yisrael Es HaShabbos Ha'ilasois Es HaShabbos Ha'ledoidoisam V'riyisoilam Ha'ilada my B'nai Hovein B'nai Yisrael Silei Olam Kishei Shesh Yomim Asa Hashem Es Hashemayim V'yes Haaretz. God tells Moshe two things. Number one, tell the Jews, tell the nation of Israel, there is this nation, the Midianites, they're terrible people, get ready for war, get ready for battle. And after that battle, Moshe, sorry to say, that's going to be your end. Your end is coming near. The next book we start next week, the book of Deuteronomy, speaks all about Moshe Rabbeinu's death. That's it. He's going to die after this battle. So, Moshe Rabbeinu, even though he knew this was his end and he knew he's not going into Israel, he knew all this already, he still said one thing. I'm the leader, and being the leader, I have responsibility first for my people. So I have to do what I have to do first for my people, for their betterment, for the betterment of the nation, my responsibility to everyone else, and then I'll worry about my own personal needs. And that, my friend, is a true leader. A true leader, by the way, it's not only a true leader of a nation, it's not only a leader of a community, it's not only a leader of a synagogue or a school, it's a leader of a business, it's a leader in a household. We each are leaders. And a true leader doesn't always put first his selfishness, his needs. He puts his family's needs first, his wife, his children, his workers, the employees of the business, his congregation, his people, they always come first. A true leader worries about his responsibility first to others, and then he worries about himself. I'd like to tell you a story about another true leader. Rabbi Moshe Feinstein, I don't know how many of you have ever heard of him. Rabbi Moshe Feinstein, who was one of the greatest sages of his time. So during his time, in the 70s, late 70s, early 80s, yeshiva boys will always remain yeshiva boys, and there was a group of yeshiva boys that were very mischievous, and they were not studious at all, and they liked to pull pranks called phone scams. What they would do was call their rabbis or a rabbi, no matter what time, and start asking these crazy, crazy questions just to drive you nuts. Pranks. So one of the boys decided, who's he going to call? The great Rabbi Moshe Feinstein. You have to just picture, Rabbi Moshe Feinstein is in his 80s, and here you have this teenage yeshiva boy is pulling a prank on the great Rabbi Moshe. And what does he do? He calls Rabbi Moshe's house in the middle of the night. Okay? Now, it tells you how much respect this yeshiva boy had for his own teachers and his own rabbis, if he could do this to the greatest rabbi of that generation. So he calls in the middle of the night, and Rabbi Moshe's wife, the Rebbitzin Feinstein, answers the phone and says, is this urgent? And the boy says, yes, it's very urgent. I must ask a halachic question. Okay, she goes and she wakes Rabbi Moshe up. Rabbi Moshe was the halachic authority, and no matter who, when, or where, it was a halachic question, Rabbi Moshe got up and answered. Rabbi Moshe gets on the phone, and the boy starts asking a halachic question, and Rabbi Moshe realizes that it's a prank. Rabbi Moshe Feinstein was no one's fool him. So he asked the boy, can I ask you a question? Before I answer your question, I have a question for you. What yeshiva do you learn in? So the boy says to Rabbi Moshe, and he knows he's speaking to Rabbi Moshe. He says, do you think I'm going to tell you which yeshiva I learn in so you can call my Rosh Yeshiva, my principal, and get me in trouble? He says, no, I promise you. And you're hearing this from me, he says. I promise you, I'm not getting you in no trouble. I'm just curious. This is in the middle of the night. What yeshiva? So he tells him the yeshiva. He convinced the boy to tell him the yeshiva. He says, tell me, what tractate of the Talmud are you learning? Now remember, there are 63 tractates. For any of you who ever saw or learned the Talmud, you know they are not like thin, they're not thin like comic books. Okay? These are big tractates with many commentaries, Rashi and Tosfos. It's crazy. And the boy is like in shock. He says, I'm learning this and this tractate. Now remember, it's in the middle of the night, so Rabbi Moshe says, what did you learn last? Which page? He says, I learned this on this page. Well, did you learn the commentary Tosfos on this and this page? And the boy doesn't understand this. And he says, no. So Rabbi Moshe says, why not? He says, because they learn it in class, but I just didn't understand it. He says, you know what? This is in the middle of the night. He says, let me teach you the tractate Gemara, and let me teach you the commentary Rashi, and let me teach you the Tosfos, and you're going to see that commentary Tosfos asks an amazing question on a different commentary. For a half hour, Rabbi Moshe taught him the Gemara in the middle of the night. In the middle of the night. So he asked the boy, can you repeat this? Do you understand it now? And the boy says, Rebbe, I'm sorry, but I don't understand it. So Rabbi Moshe says, I got plenty of time. Let's learn it again. So they start learning for another half hour. So this is now, they're learning for an hour, 15 minutes on the phone. And the boy says, now I got the question of the commentary. What an amazing question. So Rabbi Moshe tells the boy, go back to your teacher tomorrow to yeshiva and ask him that question. He comes to school the next day, okay? He's all excited. And he comes to his teacher, he raises his hand, and his teacher says, okay, what kind of stupid question is this kid going to ask now? Because he never speaks up, he just causes problems. He says, Rebbe, I have a question for you. It says this and this over here, and it says this and this over here. Don't they contradict each other? And he asks this crazy question, and all of a sudden his rabbi looks it up and says, that's an amazing question. Where did you get it from? He says, what do you mean, where did I get it from? I got it from Rabbi Moshe Feinstein. Rabbi almost falls on the floor. He says, get out of here. When did you speak to Rabbi Moshe Feinstein? Oh, I spoke to him 2 o'clock in the morning. And he learned it with me on the phone. And we got off the phone at almost 3:30. He says, I have to look up the answer. I don't know the answer. 4 days later, the teacher comes and gives him the answer. The boy comes home crying. He closes his door to the room. He's crying like a baby. The parents run into the room and says, what happened? Did something happen in school? What happened? And all he could say through his choked up tears, he said, Reb Moshe, Reb Moshe, Reb Moshe believed in me, and I asked the rabbi a question, and it took my teacher 4 days till he was able to give me an answer. Says, Mom, Dad, tomorrow, that's it. I'm changing my whole life around. Today, he is, and I can't mention his name or which yeshiva today, he's a rabbi, a great rabbi in a very post-high school yeshiva in Israel with a beautiful family, and he made it very big. And if today you ask him, why? What made you change? You were the worst of your class. You called even, you had no respect for your teachers. He'll say, Reb Moshe believed in me, and because of that, he got me to believe in myself. That's a leader. Wakes up 2 a.m, a prank phone call. Reb Moshe must have felt something on the phone that this boy needs, is looking for attention. And he gave him that attention he needs. He didn't worry about his extra hour, 2 hours of sleep. To a boy who needed attention, and he didn't say, dude, call me back at 2 p.m. I have to go back to sleep. What kind of chutzpah is this waking me up? Right? We all would do that. No, Rabbi Moshe didn't do that. That's a real leader. Thinking of someone else and realizing that if we just believe in someone, if we will just go that extra mile in believing in someone, imagine that extra mile everyone else will go. You know what we say to one person and it'll bring him back home. It's never too late to get back home. Because our mother and our father, arms are open. The Torah is open. Judaism is open. God is ready to embrace. It's never too late. We have to remember we can always go home, but we also have to remember we always have to believe in other people. But before we believe in other people, we must always believe in ourselves. Have a good Shabbos, everyone. L'chaim, l'chaim. Good Shabbos, good Shabbos. Good Shabbos, good Shabbos. Good Shabbos, good Shabbos. Matt, I love your Lachadodi, Matt. It was beautiful. Keep it up.